لو فايشلان هيمونوثو تراست بيرايدن بدوليدن بدكتور عايشينا.
As witnesses of the faith, we have been abandoned, betrayed even by the Western politicians looking just for opportunistic, what we call interest.
Pope Francis pleads, above all, I ask leaders and legislators and the entire international community to confront the reality of those who have been displaced by force with effective projects and new approaches in order to protect their dignity. The present situation in the world is an appeal to the international community that the only positive way forward is to pursue the path of dialogue toward peaceful coexistence.
This Ebola situation affects all sectors of society. The Catholic Church has been very instrumental in terms of providing supports, psychosocial support to different populations in different areas, and now these people need this support more than ever before.
The Catholic Church is very involved in the three most heavily affected countries, Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Guinea. Much of the work has been to educate people about the facts around Ebola, because there's so much fear and panic and misinformation that goes out among the people.
I do not think we have reached the peak of that yet. For instance, within Switzerland here, I do not see people in the street that are so aware. I think a lot more could be done, even right here in Geneva, in terms of creating the awareness that would lead to positive support in terms of personnel, in terms of finance, in terms of materials.
We have given to Mr. Leinikov the signatures of more than 300,000 people that they are asking United Nations and the Arabic League to do something, or at least to do the best, because silence is not acceptable.
Since 2007, Caritas Internationalis has been working on a campaign on pediatric AIDS and pediatric tuberculosis. So during each CHAN Catholic HIV and AIDS network meeting, we look at the issue of pediatric AIDS. We see what are the challenges and what are the updates.
For years, we had a debate in the international community about condom use, and many times the church was attacked because it did not promote this means of prevention. And yet the effectiveness of treatment is much higher than the use of condoms.
Paul VI is a Pope who announced that a civilization of love would be the realization of the social teaching of the Church, and we have to prepare the civilization of love in teaching and in make application of this social teaching of the Church. And we have a prophet, Paul VI. He said that during a short period inside the history, this social teaching of the Church would be applied, would be certain application. The evil remained, but there were a flourishing of Christianity.
The principle of religious liberty inherent to human dignity clearly reminds us that free personal choice and liberty of conversion must be respected and accepted.
We have identified what are the root cause of this problem, especially poverty, education, and fanaticism. So this main problem has to be addressed, and that's why we are talking here how we can address, how international community can come together, how we can promote education in our countries, how we can overcome these problems of extremism, terrorism, sectarian violence, and protection of religious minority from the religious persecution.
The task that we have is to call attention to the fact, not to create an antagonism toward anybody, but to bring out the evidence that there are unacceptable ways of dealing with Christians in many countries.
When the international community fails to preserve peace, it should not accept a second failure. Compliance is not only a legal obligation, it is in the first place a moral duty towards the people and a political duty to restore peace.
What is certain from the observations and data presently available is that civilian populations are the first victims of conflict. In many cases, they have no protection, millions of refugees and displaced people, a majority of them civilian victims, a great number are women and children. The exacerbation of hatred and of feelings of revenge that makes the re-establishment of peace and national reconstruction more difficult, if not impossible. For the credibility and the integrity of the Convention and for the respect of the numerous victims, I would like to suggest to put this question on the agenda of the CCW.
For religious leaders, the ethical concerns arise from their own core values and principles of their religious traditions regarding human life. For Christians, human life is sacred, and the dignity of the human person is the foundation of a moral vision of society. Devotion to being harmless, on the other hand, is a core principle of Buddhist religious life, and the principle of non-harming is absolute in regard to killing. Islam considers all life forms as sacred. However, the sanctity of human life is accorded a special place.
It is, of course, a great honor to receive such a high distinction from the Holy Father. It is one of those moments in your life that remain engraved in your memory and in your heart for as long as you live. But this award is also for the Order of Malta. It is a recognition of the importance and value of its work around the world. And I would also say that it is an encouragement not only to pursue, but also to strengthen our engagement in the spiritual and humanitarian activities of the Order.
The conference was very good. We have hundreds of NGOs that attended. The conference was on the celebration of the anniversary of the Family Convention, and was important from many points of view. The first one was remarkable, remembering that family life, natural family is the base of society, the natural evidence for any religion and belief. And it is also on the foundation of the Declaration of Human Rights.
The persistent inequality and the increasing levels of poverty prompt many workers in developing countries to seek work abroad. This type of migration, however, is still too frequently associated with unacceptable labor abuses. The international instruments on labor and migration adopted over the years are crucial for safeguarding the dignity and rights of migrant workers. However, existing regulations in many countries are often inconsistent with or fail to uphold them.
Je suis ici à Genève pour faire une conférence sur le témoignage.
I'm here in Geneva to testify about my work with women who endure atrocities on our territory, precisely in the eastern province on the territory of Dangu. I'm testifying about how I've helped young women and children who are victims of war atrocities. I found that what I can do for these women harmed in their dignity, life, and psychology, what I can bring to them in order to help them and relieve them from their trauma.
Dans leur vie, dans leur psychologie, ce que je peux faire comme apport pour chercher à les aider à sortir de leur traumatisme.
The private ownership of goods is justified by the need to protect and increase them so that they can better serve the common good. I wish to close with the words once again of Pope Francis. Future Sustainable Development Goals must therefore be formulated and carried out with generosity and courage, so that they can have a real impact on the structural causes of poverty and hunger, attain more substantial results in protecting the environment, ensure dignified and productive labor for all, and provide appropriate protection for the family, which is an essential element in sustainable human and social development. Profit cannot be the only rational goal of business activity, as Pope Francis and other religious leaders tell us. When human rights are neglected, a systemic exclusion of the vulnerable comes about. It is no longer simply about exploitation and oppression, but something new. Exclusion ultimately has to do with what it means to be a part of the society in which we live. Those excluded are no longer society's underside, or its fringes, or its disenfranchised. They are no longer even part of it. The excluded are not the exploited, but the outcast, the leftovers.
For us, it is very important to be here because we can create bridges between organizations, governments, businesses, and communities to facilitate dialogue and understanding among themselves and to make sure that the dignity of all of us as human beings, as sons and daughters of God, are respected. Pope Francis spoke of globalization, of the solidarity and brotherhood. The Catholic Church, the Universal Church, the sister churches of the United Kingdom as well as of Europe are working for creating a better world, a world where solidarity is a fundamental principle to unify us.
The images, the testimonies we've heard are those that are really deeply emotional. But beyond that emotion, they tell us things about what our 21st century is about. We hear words like the Far West. We hear words like slaves, people being bought and sold as slaves. We hear things that children can drown, floating on a piece of wood. What are we talking about? What is all this in our age, in our modern society? I sincerely hope and wish that the testimonies we've heard tonight will echo in our minds and in our hearts when we will be discussing these issues not only tomorrow and the day after, but in the coming years, because this is not the end of a story. That they will echo tomorrow in the High Commissioner's dialogue, and that they will echo in all decisions and actions we are committed to take.
My experience is when problems are complex, the best way is to stick to principles. And in this case, I think there is a number of principles and values that we can all share. First, save lives as the most important of our concerns. Second, respect human rights and the rule of law. Third, promote tolerance. And finally, value diversity.
So I think that was the main issue, protection at sea, how to save lives, what should be done, and which implementation is necessary. So it's always also for the Holy See very important to be there and to support certain principles, especially to make sure that the gospel is made visible in all circumstances, in all situations.
For the Order of Malta, it is particularly important to be able to carry out its humanitarian and spiritual mission, and also at the same time to recognize that whoever suffers, whoever is in front of us, represents the image of God, and to see in those who suffer the image of God that helps us understand and alleviate their suffering. The migrants who are fished out of the waters in the Mediterranean and in many other seas around the world, they need our help.